Have you ever waited for something so long that you started to doubt it would ever happen? Perhaps it was a dream job, a relationship, or an answered prayer. Now imagine waiting not just months or years, but decades, while holding onto a promise that seemed more impossible with each passing day. This is the remarkable story of Abraham, Sarah, and God's perfect timing in bringing new life into the world. The story begins when Abraham was still known as Abram, living in the land of Haran. At 75 years old, he received an extraordinary promise from God. He would become the father of a great nation, with descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. There was just one challenge. His wife Sarah, then called Sarai, was unable to have children, and both of them were well past the age of parenthood. God's promise seemed to defy logic and biology. Yet Abraham chose to believe, packing up his entire household and journeying to an unknown land simply because God had called him. Year after year passed, and still no child arrived. The couple's hair grew grayer, their steps became slower, but the promise remained unfulfilled. 10 years into their wait, Sarah decided to take matters into her own hands. Following the customs of their time, she offered her Egyptian servant Hagar to Abraham as a surrogate. While this resulted in the birth of Ishmael, God made it clear this was not the child of promise. The covenant would be fulfilled through a son born to Sarah herself. When Abraham was 99 years old, God appeared to him again, changing his name from Abram to Abraham, meaning father of many nations. The Lord renewed his covenant, declaring that within 1 year, Sarah would bear a son. Abraham's response: he fell face down and laughed. The idea of a 100-year-old man and a 90-year-old woman having a baby seemed absurd. Soon after, 3 mysterious visitors arrived at Abraham's tent. One of them, revealed to be the Lord himself, repeated the promise: "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Sarah, listening from inside the tent, laughed to herself. Her laughter wasn't just amusement. It was the laughter of someone who had given up hope, who had accepted the impossibility of her situation. But God's response to Sarah's doubt was simple yet profound. Is anything too hard for the Lord? This question echoes through the centuries, challenging our own limited perspectives and reminding us that God's power knows no bounds. True to his word, at the appointed time, Sarah conceived and bore a son. They named him Isaac, which means laughter, a beautiful reminder of how their disbelieving laughter had transformed into joy. The birth of Isaac wasn't just a personal miracle for one elderly couple. It was a crucial link in God's plan for humanity. Through this son of promise, God would establish his covenant people, eventually leading to the birth of Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. What seemed like a long delay was actually perfect timing in God's grand design. This ancient story speaks powerfully to our modern hearts. How often do we grow impatient with God's timing? Like Abraham and Sarah, we might be tempted to force our own solutions or laugh at God's promises. Yet their story teaches us that God's delays are not denials. Every promise he makes will be fulfilled in his perfect timing. The years of waiting weren't wasted years. They were years that tested and strengthened Abraham and Sarah's faith. Each day of waiting was a day to choose trust over doubt, hope over despair. When Isaac finally arrived, they had learned through experience that God is faithful, that his power is limitless, and that his timing is perfect. Their story reminds us that God often works in ways that seem impossible by human standards. He delights in showing his power precisely when situations appear hopeless. Whether you're waiting for healing, restoration, or the fulfillment of a dream, remember Abraham and Sarah. Remember how God turned their mourning into dancing, their doubt into delight, and their laughter of disbelief into laughter of pure joy. Perhaps you're in a season of waiting right now. Maybe, like Sarah, you've laughed at the seeming impossibility of your situation. Take heart. The God who brought life from Sarah's barren womb is still working miracles today. His timing may be different than ours, but it is always perfect. For as the prophet Isaiah would later write, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles.